Matt Harmon here with another edition of the Reception Perception Mailbag. This is where I ask the Discord community, the Reception Perception Discord, which you can join at the link in the description here. The mailbag section there is where I collect a bunch of questions from you guys. We've got a bunch to get into, some post-draft reaction questions, little mix of rookie talk, little mix of some veterans that were affected here, and of course, some nonsense along the way. So let's waste no more time. Let's get into it. First question comes in from Shark. Assuming the Patriots have no additional receiver acquisitions, what kind of deployment would you expect out of them? The Patriots receiver room, much more interesting right now than it was 12 months ago, or certainly a few months ago. They added Kyle Williams in the third round. They added Stephon Diggs in free agency. They also added Mack Hollins. If I had to guess, this is a tough one. I think Stephon Diggs leads the team in targets, routes, snaps, all those things, even if he's working back a little bit slowly towards the beginning of the year, because his success rate versus man coverage was still over 70% last year. I don't think he has to be a slot only or even slot mostly player. I think he's probably going to be the primary flanker on this team. Mack Hollins, I think, might be the favorite to be the starting X receiver just because of his size and his familiarity with Josh McDaniels. Remember, he was with the Raiders as their X receiver when Josh McDaniels was there. So could be just kind of a culture setter guy that they don't play a lot. The question is about the younger players here. I know Demario Douglas has been productive for this team, but I think he's a very limited player. I think they should try to give every opportunity to guys like Jalen Polk and Kyle Williams to see if they could usurp him. Now, mostly Polk is the guy that's interesting here because he played a bunch of X receiver for the Patriots last year, which was just disgusting. I mean, look, Jalen Polk obviously dropped his opportunities quite literally last year. I've said this a lot, but it's confusing to me that his blocking sucked and he couldn't catch anything when his hands were great and his blocking was awesome at Washington as a prospect. So a little confusing there, but I think he primarily should be an off the line of scrimmage and power slot type of player. And the Patriots coaching staff last year kind of set him up to fail. We'll see if he's even in the mix here. He could be a guy they're just waving goodbye to, which based on how he played last year wouldn't be surprising. But if he's going to succeed, I think he would push Pop Douglas for the slot receiver gig. Very different players. Kyle Williams, man, he's awesome. Kyle Williams is just a great player. He had an over 80th percentile success rate versus press coverage. He won on intermediate routes, and he was a great quick separator. I actually wouldn't totally rule out that he could play X receiver. And in maybe in the long term, he's the Stephon Diggs replacement, because I actually think he profiles pretty similarly to an early career Stephon Diggs. Smaller guy, but wins in the big game. The difference is in terms of Stephon Diggs now versus Kyle Williams is an elite tackle breaker. Went down on first contact and on only 44% of his in-space attempts. So I expect Williams in the long term to be the top receiver among the guys here. But for now, he could be sort of a rotation flanker, maybe play some X receiver. I expect him and Diggs to work in tandem as the top two outside receivers by the end of the season. Next question comes in from Chino4242. How do you see Emeka Egbuka coexisting with Chris Godwin on Tampa Bay this year? I'm a manager as 1.8. I'm assuming Dynasty rookie draft from Chris Godwin, and was happy with the draft capital, but disappointed with his landing spot. Really interesting here, obviously, Emeka Egbuka. For the people out there, subscribe to the channel because James Coe and I are going to have a full series breaking down every single player that was picked in the first, second, and third round of this year's NFL draft. We go into detail on Egbuka and why I kind of talked myself into this pick. So make sure you subscribe to check out that video when it hits the channel. As for this one, just right now, Egbuka coexisting with Chris Godwin, I do think it's interesting because Egbuka is probably a power slot. Ideally, Chris Godwin is one of the best power slots in the league, but Chris Godwin had a 75% success rate versus man coverage last year. He can beat man coverage. He can play outside. Egbuka was just under 69% success rate versus man coverage in his prospect profile. He's not necessarily a slot-only guy. So this offense moved players. They did a lot of pre-snap motion last year. Josh Grizzard is taking over as the offensive coordinator from the passing coordinator gig, replacing Liam Cohen. Now, Liam Cohen's awesome. He's one of my favorite play callers in the league last year, but Grizzard was probably a part of that process and putting that offense together. I expect it to look very similarly. So that's how I would guess. Egbuka is going to be the primary flanker this year. Godwin would be the primary slot, but those guys can work in tandem and kind of switch release and move off and work off of each other. You're just going to have to be patient. If you're taking him in the first round of your Dynasty rookie draft, which I would still do, I'm not bumping him too far down my rankings, even with this landing spot, because it's a good offensive ecosystem overall. But I do think you've got to be prepared to be patient with him this year. So that's sort of just how it works out in my brain, at least for year one. Next question comes in from Saucy Beaver Lips. What a username. Who do we think is going to be the number 2 wide receiver on the Cowboys this year? Is it going to be one of Mingo, Tolbert, or Flournoy? Someone not on the roster yet. Let me shoot, Saucy Beaver Lips. Your guess is as good as mine, bro. I would guess right now, among these players, it would be Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert was quietly a pretty nice player for them last year. Now, I think he'd be better served as a 3 than a 2, but if I had to bet of these guys, it would definitely be him. Jonathan Mingo needs to be deployed as a slot player. I said this when he was a prospect. There was no way he was going to work out as a perimeter player. He had to move in to be a power slot player. The Panthers immediately, on that Frank Reich staff, which did do a lot of smart things, immediately had him as an outside player. So that stunk. Not good to see. I don't know that Mingo is ready to break out with this team. I'm skeptical of that, although I'm not totally out on Mingo. Tolbert would be the favorite of this group, but they got to go someone not on the roster yet. I said this even before it was reported that somebody was going to send a "you up" text here. Amari Cooper was going to send it to the Cowboys, or the Cowboys were going to send it to Amari Cooper. Well, somebody sent it to somebody, because I do think we're recording this right now on May 1st. I think there's a chance at some point Cooper ends up back on this roster. Not sure he has a lot left, but he would certainly be an upgrade over guys like Mingo and Flournoy and probably Tolbert as well. Can't have that. You just can't. This cannot be the number 2 of a serious offense. This is a pretty problematic position for Dallas. All right. Next one comes in from Poro. What do you think the Vikings saw in Ty Felton giving their limited picks and wide receiver room being fairly stacked as it is? So I'd push back on your second statement there that their wide receiver room is fairly stacked as it is. I think they got a great 1-2. Okay, Justin Jefferson is one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best receiver in football. And Jordan Addison is a really, really nice number 2 receiver. I think he's just a number 2. I don't think he necessarily is in that tier of like Devontae Smith or T. Higgins or Chris Godwin. Like, oh man, this could be a 1 on another team. I think Addison's just a really, really good 2. Secondly, beyond them, I don't know that guys like Jalen Naylor or Brandon Powell really move the needle. So I actually think that adding some depth in that room did make some sense. Now, what I think they saw in Ty Felton is speed. Runs a sub 4.4, and you see the route chart here. Doesn't give you a lot of deep separation with that speed, but he stretches the field underneath. Slant route success rate was really good. Curl route success rate was solid. Out route success rate was probably his best, like true vertical route. He also is really good with the ball in his hands. He breaks tackles. He's a better zone beater than a man beater. So I think they're looking at him as kind of a player that they're going to move pre-snap, a slot player, honestly, maybe a souped up version of Brandon Powell, who's on the roster and has been sort of a pet favorite of this coaching tree. So he may be more of a guy that doesn't get a lot of targets, but helps activate other players because of his motion ability. And when they can design some touches for him, he gives them a little pop against zone coverage and after the catch. So he went a little higher than I thought, but not a bad thought process overall for why they got him. Next question comes in from Ethan Conley / Oscar Bobo from the Discord. Of the later round and UDFA players, who were you most surprised to see go late? And what are some landing spots that at the very least intrigue you? Okay, I'll give you 2 guys here, and they're both undrafted players because there were some guys that went undrafted. Xavier Restrepo wasn't too surprising. He ran that 4.8. Like that's just tough. I think he can still be a successful player, but that's tough. Not surprising that he went undrafted because of it. 2 guys that did surprise me were Andrew Armstrong and Elijah Badger. And I actually kind of like both of their landing spots. Badger, real quick, I liked Armstrong a lot better, but Badger was an interesting guy that could have gone on day 3. He showed an ability to beat man coverage in his rookie roundup sample. He was over 70%, showed some vertical route running as well. So I actually think he's a deep sleeper. Obviously went freaking undrafted, but on Kansas City's roster, they need perimeter help. I think he could be some perimeter help for them. Very different skill set than the other guys in the room. I liked his hands, and back at Arizona State before he transferred to Florida, he was pretty effective with the ball in his hands. So he's at least somebody I would keep an eye on. Andrew Armstrong, man, I know it was listen. I get it. He's an older player, right? He's turned 25 on Halloween this year. I understand that. But this guy was the leading receiver in the SEC. He was the most productive receiver on his team by a lot. Okay? What are we talking about here? Why did this guy go undrafted? The film was pretty good too. over 70% success rate versus man. Pretty good success rate versus zone. Now, he doesn't give you a lot down the field. He ran up like a decent 40 time, but I didn't love the deep separation. I actually think there is some work that needs to be done as a route runner. He kind of has these like choppy steps in his route, which just it's like wasted motion. I think if he really sunk his hips and moved more fluidly, which maybe it's just he can't do it, but if he could be taught to sort of just stride out those routes, I think the fluidity would increase. I think some of the separation down the field would increase. But damn, yo, look at like the dig routes, the curls, the slants, some decent stuff on comebacks as well. Like this guy's a pretty nice route runner for what he is. Like, I think he's a potentially decent X receiver prospect. I actually I would have been fine if he went in the damn third round, did Andrew Armstrong, because he also has good hands in contested situation, truly extends to snatch the ball away, and he breaks tackles in space. Like, I really was kind of dumbfounded that even though he's an older player, and maybe that's what the NFL is saying, like, yeah, okay, cool chart, Harmon, nice production, but the guy's just a near 25-year-old player dunked on 18-year-olds. Fair enough. That's why I didn't give him a friggin' first-round grade or something. But I thought he was a good player, man. And the Miami Dolphins, to get him, he stands out in that room. Because, by the way, this guy loves to block. He's a rugged player. Can't really say that about too many of their other wide receivers there in Miami. So I like that landing spot for him, but I was stunned that he went undrafted. Next question comes in from, oh my God, Ass Snorkel. Some of these names, bro. How am I on the internet here saying Ass Snorkel? Anyways, Ass Snorkel. How high in tier 2 of your dynasty rank should Elijah Moore be once he signs with the Bills? Look, I had to get this question in here because Elijah Moore did sign with the Buffalo Bills. All right? It happened. He's not going to be in tier 2 of my dynasty rankings, but look, I know you guys are sitting out there saying, let it go, man. Go outside, get a life, move on, okay? It's not going to happen. You're probably right. But Elijah Moore, I think, has shown in isolation good separation ability. Did he screw himself with the Jets? Yes. You don't go whining on Twitter when your team's on a 4-game win streak. You just don't do it, okay? Keep that stuff in-house. That was a mistake by Elijah Moore. He paid for that mistake. He was traded to Cleveland Browns, who have just run out a host of embarrassing quarterbacks one after the other. There was a brief moment this past season where Moore had a couple of games with Jameis Winston. He was he was kind of benefiting from the Jameis Winston pump and dump scheme. He didn't quite have the same pop that Jerry Jeudy did, which is fine because he had that one revenge game over 200 yards against the Broncos. But otherwise, Moore had some pretty decent games. And that's probably the best quarterback that he's played with. Like him or Joe Flacco. That's ridiculous. He was one of the lowest like catchable target rates last year, according to fantasy points data. He's probably not going to have a major role in Buffalo. I get it. Dude, he might not even make the team. Okay, this might be all a waste of time. But I am willing to keep the candle slightly lit for Elijah Moore. This is the right move for the Bills to make a free agency. You just get a distressed asset, a guy who really hasn't been maximized because he's never played with a good quarterback. I'm willing to just keep the smallest of small candles lit for Elijah Moore. And I just wanted to get that on record for the YouTube people. And thank you for allowing me a safe space to admit it. Next question comes in from Mike K. I was surprised to see Marvin Harrison fall to 15th in your dynasty rankings. You mentioned flaws. Would you care to elaborate? What are the chances we see a bounce back in year 2 and he turns into the elite prospect we were all expecting? Okay. I would care to elaborate. I should also mention that we are going to get a full Marvin Harrison Jr. profile with the May 12th second-year wide receiver drop on receptionperception.com. So subscribe to the site to make sure you get that. Here's the deal. He's 15th on my wide receiver rankings right now. He's never been a guy that I like. I'm pretty conservative with rookies. So I never had him like third or something like that. So it's not that crazy of a fall. But the reality is, like, there's a lot of good receivers right now in the NFL, and a lot of guys have proven more than him, period. Like, I put a premium on what you've shown me in the NFL. By the way, some of the guys that are behind him were also tier 1 elite receiver prospects to me. Malik Neighbors was in that tier. Drake London was in that tier. Garrett Wilson was in that tier. Now, Marvin Harrison as a prospect might have been better than those guys, but this is why we do tiers. This is why tiers matter, because to me, fighting within the tier is stupid. Okay, Travis Hunter, by the way, it's a tier 1 receiver prospect. Um, but this is why, again, tiers matter here, because could he catch up to those guys? Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. Well, we need to see improvement, which comes back to the flaws that you mentioned, which I will be going into in depth in the profile on receptionperception.com. But I think some of the issues that we saw were mostly in contested situations, which I did point out in his prospect profile. I called them a minor flaw. Mistake. Should have mentioned it as a big deal. He doesn't work back to the ball well. He doesn't work well in contested situations. He needs to play more physical there. This is the biggest issue for him right now. In order to, because he's still a good starting X receiver in the league. The profile that's coming out next week is good. Okay, he was a good starting X receiver last year, which is not a bad thing. Just the expectations were very high for him, which is why I think it's viewed as a little bit of a disappointment. But as long as he corrects some of those flaws at the catch point, which is totally possible, he's still a good route runner. He's still a good separator. He still gives you a lot of pop off the line of scrimmage. So I'm still very much in on Marvin Harrison. And yeah, he's 15th right now. Could I move him up in a couple months, ahead of maybe some older players? Sure. Should I move him ahead of some guys? Like if the profile turns out really good, totally possible. Shoot, 4 games into next season, if he looks like he's corrected those flaws, he could easily be a top 10, top 8 dynasty receiver. So this is why tiers matter. And this is why, again, it's important to adjust to expectations, but not over adjust to expectations. So Marvin Harris is a complicated subject. I'm sure we'll talk about a lot. That's sort of just where I'm at with why he's 15th right now. I just think straight up, mostly it's just there are better players ahead of him, and that's where it is. Next one comes in from STL Evate. I don't know. I screw this one up all the time, but it's on the screen. How do you see the wide receiver situation playing out in Houston both this year and in the future? Several RP faves in that meeting room. Yes, Nico Collins, Jalen Knoll, I would say are RP favorites. And Tank Dell, great reception perception profile as rookie year, but I think we got to start there. I think what the Houston Texans have shown us by trading for Christian Kirk, by drafting both Iowa State receivers, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, is that unfortunately right now, I just think anything Tank Dell gives them ever again after 2 season-ending injuries back-to-back, I think you got to view that as gravy, which, unfortunately, Tank Dell went from like an outlier and why you bet on outliers to a cautionary tale like that. That's how quickly it happened for Tank Dell, which sucks because he was a really fun player as a rookie and a very interesting prospect as well. That being said, moving him out of the equation. So let's talk about Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, and both the Iowa State receivers. Number 1, Nico Collins, the alpha, top 5 receiver in the NFL right now. He's an X. He's going to be outside on the line of scrimmage on over 80% of his snaps. So that leaves a slot and a flanker position open. And all this stuff is kind of blurred a little bit in offenses like this under Nick Caley coming from the LA Rams, also has background with the Patriots. We're going to see a lot of condensed formations. So going to blur the lines a little bit for all these guys, but Nico Collins, primary X. Jalen Knoll, despite the fact he was a primary slot receiver in college, actually could play outside in the NFL. I think he could do a little bit of both. So that's why I'm really interested to see how his deployment lines up with a guy like Jaden Higgins, who I think should be a power slot player. We'll link to the video from Keon Coleman last year because Jaden Higgins fits into this bucket and all the analysis stands up. But guys that are sub 35th percentile success rate versus man and press coverage players in college or zone, 2 of the 3, all the guys that have been successful in that in that bucket have gone on to be power slots. Okay, so I think Jaden Higgins should be a big slot receiver in the NFL, but he can still be maximized if he's off the line of scrimmage. He just can't play X. I don't care that he's 6'4". I don't care that he's over 210 pounds. I don't care that he ran a 4.4. His film does not show an X receiver, but I think he can be very successful off the line of scrimmage, moving across formation, pretty solid zone beater. So him and Knoll working in tandem, I think will be really interesting because you can do some situations where Higgins is on the line of scrimmage and in the slot, and Knoll is sort of moving off the ball between flanker or slot, working these 2 guys together. They do have good chemistry and communication. They friggin' played together before. A lot of switch release stuff. Long term, that's how I see the room playing out. This year, Christian Kirk could kind of block one of them. Whoever they ticket for the slot receiver role is the one he's probably going to block. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Kirk, this deep into his career, they only traded a 7th-round pick for him. They got deep 7th-round pick in the future. If he's just not a big part of this room. So I'm really high on both these Iowa State receivers post-draft because they went to the right offense. So keep a candle lit for these guys. I'm really excited to see them work in the Houston Texans offense. Next question here comes in from Gravy. Love a simple username. The Chiefs see Jalen Royals as a direct fill-in for Rashee Rice. Should we be worried that either A, the Chiefs aren't optimistic about Rice's injury, or B, with the off-field concerns of Rice, that Royals might be a cheap way to replace him? There's some comments from a Chiefs decision maker. I retweeted these the other day that they viewed him, Jalen Royals, as Rashee Rice insurance. Number one, love to see this. I was on JJ Zacharyason's podcast talking about how he had a Jalen Royals comparison in his prospect guide that was to Rashee Rice. And there are some reception perception indicators that Jalen Royals would be really good in a Rashee Rice role. Now, he was a pure perimeter receiver in college, Jalen Royals, but it was in a very stripped down offense. The route chart is very rudimentary, as you see here. A lot of slants and curls, and screens, and like that was kind of it. Some digs, but like not a very, very stripped down route tree. Only line up on one side of the field, but he does show speed. And he does show ability to play with the ball in his hands. That was very similar to Rashee Rice in college. I think Royals was a bit better of a prospect. I was very low on Rice, too low on Rice, and talked about that. But we'll also link to a YouTube short video talking about this comparison as well. I think this makes a lot of sense in terms of Jalen Royals and his deployment. Okay, but the question is, does this say A or B in terms of the question about Rashee Rice? Maybe. I mean, shoot, and they should be a little concerned with the off-field concerns with Rice, and that the fact that he's coming off of a major injury. So I think Royals could be a cheap way to replace him if Rice doesn't, check out off the field, or if there's any like slow comeback from the injury. So it's definitely something to be on the radar about. And I would just say, like, I think Rashee Rice is a nice player, but nothing he's shown so far in the NFL is like, oh, he's one of the best young receivers in the league, or he can't be replaced. Like, this is a role that you can cycle players in and out of, this kind of slot yards after catch option. And I think Jalen Royals could be a guy that does that as well. So there are definitely some concerns, more concerns that the Dynasty community thinks about Rashee Rice. Next question comes in from Matt Brown. How do you see the Luther Burden pick for the Bears working in tandem with Rome and DJ? I don't think Luther Burden's going to make a big impact in year one. And actually, I'm actually going to kind of skip this question and just say, watch the video that's coming out on Luther Burden with James and I. This might be in a couple weeks, but subscribe to the channel to get that one, because we got a great breakdown on that one. But I just wanted to address it because we got a lot of questions about the Luther Burden Bears wide receiver room, but we're going to go in depth on that one. So I'll just say, hey, check that out. Next question comes in from God in the Reception Perception Discord. Did not see that one coming. What is the schematic value of a slot receiver versus a move tight end? Traditionally, I feel like slots aren't vertical guys, but we started to see a lot of guys develop that. So would that more or less wipe out the vertical appeal of a move tight end? So great question here. And this is sort of our, we're moving into big picture stuff now. This section of the mailbag is like big picture stuff. Man, a lot to get into here, but this is sort of what happens with tight ends in the NFL, is that unless you're just a A-tier freak show like Brock Bowers, you're not a better receiver than a good slot receiver. So that's why you see these like thought experiments, guys like Dalton Kincaid, not really work out, because, okay, like Dalton Kincaid is a nice pass catcher, but he's not a better separator than, not a guy that can beat man coverage better than like a Khalil Shakir, or something like that. So that's why there's sort of a squeeze there for this type of player. And then he just sort of becomes a nebulous player because he's also not a blocker. So that's the schematic value of the slot receiver versus the move tight end, is just that the slot receiver, if they are a better man coverage player, and there's so many guys now that are interior players but superior against man coverage, is sort of the pop gun slot receiver archetype. It allows you more man coverage flexibility, third downs, long down and distances in the red zone where man coverage rates go up. That's part of it. The move tight end does give you an advantage in terms of blocking. So sometimes you'll get slot receivers that are smaller. They're not necessarily big plus blockers. So the tight end allows you to do more in the run game. However, this is this whole power slot receiver thing. Think about Chris Godwin, who I said earlier in the video is an over 75% success rate versus man coverage player. He's also one of the best blocking receivers in the league. So that guy is never getting replaced by a move tight end because he can get open better, and he might be just as good of a blocker and somebody who could break tackles after the catch. So the schematic value depends on the player. Like if it's a power slot, you're getting a lot in the run game. If it's a vertical slot, you're getting more down the field than most tight ends. So that's why tight end is a tough position. That's why they ask a lot of you, and there's just ways that you can get squeezed and pushed out of the passing game rotation. So there's a lot more to it. That's kind of a big picture sort of bottom line explanation here. All right, next one comes in from who_R. If a player has certain red routes, so a below average success rate compared to the NFL or prospect average, for example, Stephon Diggs' 9 route, what does that usually cause in reality in games? Does it mean that the coaches won't have plays with him running 9 routes? Does this mean his route tree becomes more predictable by defenses if they know he's only going to run certain ones? Does it mean less snaps for the player? I actually don't know if it means any of these things, to be honest. It's sort of more so what role they might work in. So that Stephon Diggs 9 route example. This is a reason I think Diggs and his 9 route success rate has been dropping each of the last 2 years, his final year in Buffalo and then his first year in Houston. You see it's below average this year, 47.1 this last year, 47.1%. So this basically means he's not going to stress the defense vertically in a straight line, which is you're not going to want him to run a lot of these vertical routes from the X receiver position where you're wanting some speed to stretch things out, both from, hey, we want to take a shot with this guy, and also going to open things up for underneath players. So that's part of it. Also, by the way, 47% is below the average of players I've charted. It's not like it's 0%, okay? Right? It's not like Stephon Diggs can't run 9 routes. It's just below average relative to the other 400, 500 plus receivers I've charted since I've been doing reception perception. So keep that in mind, right? Again, it's not freaking 0%. So I think it's more so about how are we going to deploy this guy to maximize his skill set, which for Diggs, you're going to want him running outbreaking routes. You're going to want him running more short and intermediate over the middle of the field. And we're limiting sort of his deep application. Same thing with guys who are not good on slants or curls, like not good in the quick game. Well, we want to get them in a position where they can run intermediate routes, kind of build up speed. Ted McMillan is a guy in this year's class that was not that good on slants because I don't think he gets into his routes as quickly as he needs to, but he builds up a lot of separation in the intermediate area with kind of, like I said, longer strides, build up speed. So this is sort of like more of the application. I think it matters in terms of less snaps, fewer snaps for the player. That's just if they are very limited, right? If there's only certain ways they can win. Like a Devontae Parker type was a very limited X receiver because he didn't separate at all and was only a jump ball winner. It's also quarterback preference as well. Does the quarterback like to throw these routes? These are more the questions we have to ask in terms of like, oh, it means that the coaches aren't going to have him run 9 routes or, his routes should become more predictable by defenses. Next question. Black Tumshi, I don't know. Do you think the relative lack of wide receiver free agency market and the size of these second contracts led teams to draft receivers earlier this year than they would have gone previously? Yeah, I do think that this is a big part of it. De'Ami Brown made $10 million a year in free agency this year. Josh Palmer averaged $10 million a year in free agency. Tutu Atwell got $10 million from the Rams. I'll tell you what I would rather do. I would rather try to find the next Tutu Atwell, De'Ami Brown, Josh Palmer, etc. in the NFL draft than pay those guys who are maybe at best good wide receiver 3s. I'd rather try to find those in the 3rd and 4th and 5th round in the NFL draft. So guys like Chimere Dike, Arian Smith, who are just fast receivers. And by the way, those guys are tactically, even if they're not productive, they might be tactically valuable to an NFL team because of the speed and how they stretch things horizontally and open space vertically for players. Like I would 100% rather try to find the next guy in the draft than pay $10 million. So that the size of these second contracts, that's a big part of it for wide receiver 3s and 4s on your roster. And it also, like the Bucs, going back to that Emeka Egbuka thing, the Bucs took him very high in the draft because guess what? If Mike Evans moves on soon. If Chris Godwin doesn't come back from injury, they're not finding a wide receiver in free agency, and nobody's probably trading them a wide receiver. Like sometimes these guys get moved if they're like the Titans are dumb and they just trade AJ Brown for reasons. It happens every now and again, but getting like a true number one receiver or even a 1B, the Bengals didn't let T. Higgins walk out the door, and he's one of the better like number 2s, 1B, whatever you want to call it, receivers. Like this is a premium position, and they do not get to the open market very often. So I agree that is a big part of it in terms of why we saw some of these receivers go earlier. Last 2 questions here that we're going to hit before we get out of here are non-football questions. So I like to do a couple non-football questions here at the end, and they're both kind of related to the same topic here. This first one comes in from C. Zapper. How do you handle meal prep? Do you fire up the smoker and do many things on one day? Yes. I can do every now and again get questions about health and fitness and stuff like that. Just advice on this, 2 things. If you're trying to lose weight, get healthy, whatever, my number 1 recommendation for you, in addition to meal prepping, is learn to cook. Learn to love it. Okay? Maybe you're the type of person that can just eat the same old boring shit for 10, 12 years. Most people are not. Okay? So if you can invest some time, an investment in your health is an investment. Okay? Like it's truly an investment. It's not going to be immediate. You're not going to see dividends right away. You got to grow to it. All right? And a big part of that, you should be investing into your cooking skills. So yeah, I do have a smoker. I know not everybody has financially, whatever. You don't have space. You live in an apartment. I never had a damn smoker when I lived in a studio apartment in LA, and I sure as shit didn't have the finances for it. All right. So I realize not everybody has one, but yes, that helps a lot. Just a couple days ago, got back from my trip to LA for the NFL draft, shooting with Yahoo. First thing I did the next morning, fire up the smoker outside, 4 packs of chicken thighs just on that thing. Okay. For the week. Big smoked whole chicken. Okay. Throw that thing on there, have it for dinner with the wife. There's plenty left over for the rest of the week. Have a bunch of meals there. Get a rice cooker. All right. So you can just prepare a shitload of rice. A bunch of potatoes. Here's a little hack for you. If you want to do potatoes and that whole chicken, get like a Pyrex, sort of situation, chop a bunch of potatoes and then put the chicken on top of it. So you're cooking 2 things at once. It's going to make the potatoes a lot better. So you get some chicken fat down in it. It's going to taste good. Okay. So crock pots, key too, get some of those. But yes, the smokers is huge for me in terms of getting a bunch of chicken done. After the chicken is done, you remove the convector from the big green egg. You put it down there. So it's got the hot charcoal. And then I'm grilling like 4 sirloin steaks because I got to eat those as well. So big part of meal prepping for me is having a smoker. But if you can get like a pressure cooker, if you can get a crock pot or the good old fashioned oven, okay, budget some time to knock out that meal prep and do a bunch of things because that is going to help you along the way. Last question here is also smoker related and not health related. So for the people that don't want to hear my health takes, John Loco, by the way, if I truly gave you my health takes, I'd be canceled for sure. John Loco, question here. What are your top 5 power rankings of smoked meat? Any tricks of the trade and pitfalls to avoid? Tricks of the trade, I don't know, man. Just do your research, right? Like Malcolm Reed, How to Barbecue Right. I've learned a ton from him. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's all over social media. He's the absolute man. I take a lot of stuff from him. Just consume a lot of stuff and learn, okay? And trial and error. Be okay with failing. That's my number 1, like, tricks of the trade, pitfalls to avoid. I also think not having a probe thermometer, that's where people get screwed up. Definitely get a Meter is a good brand. Meter, sponsor the channel, okay? Meter Pro, the whole deal. Get yourself one of those. Top 5 power rankings of smoked meat. This is going to be tough. Okay. This is going to be tough. And I'm sure I'm going to leave something off, but this is in no particular order. I'm going to go with pork butt, pulled pork. It's simple. I get it, but it's a staple for a reason. Okay. That's got to be on the top 5. Again, this is not in order. I'm not saying that's my number 1. Pork belly is definitely one of the goats. Okay. Cube those things up. Pork belly, burnt ends, absolutely elite. Great appetizer. You bring a bunch of those things to your next little get together. People are actually going to like you. So that's 1. That's 2. Number 3, I said the whole chicken in the meal prep. I think a smoked whole chicken is absolutely outrageously good. Again, you get a ton of meat from it. The breast, if you spatchcock that thing, you have to spatchcock it. Okay, if you're not spatchcocking the chicken, you're wasting time. Yeah, beer can chicken, it's fine. It's okay. Spatchcocking is the way to go. You can also do it for turkey, for Thanksgiving. Spatchcock that thing, you get a ton of meat out of it. Skin's absolutely great. 300 degrees or above. 300 degrees or above. Not too high. You don't want to burn the damn skin. But 300 degrees or above on the smoked chicken, you're going to love it. That's got to be in my top 5. And then I will go beef short ribs, okay? You could do the big plate ribs, the dino ribs, or just the individual ones. Let's group that all in the one category here. Absolutely, again, tier 1 elite in terms of smoked meat. If you do it right, it's the best in the game. Totally unbelievably awesome. Just one of the best bites in barbecue, period. People say it because it's true. And then lastly, I'm going to leave brisket off. I know people are going to hate that. But I think brisket's very hit or miss. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's really bad. But yeah, just, probably because my wife doesn't like it, I'm biased here. So, maybe you can blame her. You can yell at her, which you can't because she's not on the internet. But I'll go with my number 5 here, ribs. I'll go with pork ribs on that one, man. Yeah, again, staple for a reason. Really, really good. So that's my top 5. Pulled pork, pork belly, whole chicken, beef ribs, specifically beef short ribs, and then I'll go with pork ribs as well. So yeah, probably not everybody's going to agree with that, but that's fine. That's what makes this fun. All right, that is it for a packed edition of the Reception Perception Mailbag. Appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below. Tell me where I'm an idiot. Tell me where I got a wide receiver take wrong. Tell me your top 5 smoked meats and how you meal prep. Tell me anything in the comments. Just comment below. Check it out. Subscribe to the channel. ReceptionPerception.com. Would love it if you could subscribe there. Like I said, the year 2 wide receiver drop is coming. Prospects are already on the site. We got a ton of stuff coming to the site this summer. You're absolutely going to love it. I will catch you all on the next video.